Good evening, everybody. How are we all? Are we all ready for our final tutorial? I'm assuming that you can all hear me. I just need a little bit of thank you. That's all I needed. Somebody to show that you can hear me. Fantastic work, everybody. So this evening, we're going to be looking at a number of things. Okay, thank you, Roll. I'm glad we're ready. Right, so we're going to start off, as always, with our acknowledgement of country, where I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land that Southern Cross University is based on. And I'd also like to pay my respects by acknowledging the elders, both past, present and emerging, not just of the Kulin Nation, but all of Australia, and extend our respect to all in the learning community who are Indigenous or present or are watching this. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of everything today. Obviously, our main focus is going to be looking at our understanding of the curriculum, which is what this week's really focused on. It's also looking at project-based learning, inquiry learning, and how that fits in with design technology and digital technology, basically technologies overall. This is what we do without even knowing it. Okay, so if you were an English teacher or you're trained to be a maths teacher, most of the things that you do aren't going to be project based, and they're not going to be like big picture where maybe students are solving a problem or an issue. But in DT, in technologies, that's what we do. We design solutions. So we'll be looking at project-based learning. We'll be having a look at inquiry questions, and that's going to be a really strong link for you, because we're going to link that into how when we're looking at our projects and our units of work that you're doing, one of the things that I said you can do last really is design the title of your unit or come up with the title. And today we're going to look at how we can do that through project-based learning and inquiry questions, and how we can make them like the title of the unit, so that says what this unit's about. We're also going to look a little bit at the design process, which links in very well with technologies, because not just curriculum design, but the design thinking skills, which are outcomes for 7 to 10. We're going to match those in. The whole intention of today really is for you to make connections between what we've been looking at in the syllabus, the curriculum, and how you're going to get that into your assignment too. Okay, so first things first, I haven't designed a poll or anything today, because really I just would like you to either, I know, imagine it, go on the mic and ask questions, or to ask questions in the chat, okay? Because everything that we talk about today will help you all creating this final assessment. So whether you have almost finished it, you're halfway through, you're just starting, or you haven't started yet, you don't need to worry, because you've got a week, basically, haven't you? It's got to be in, it's next Sunday night, the submission date. I'm correct. Let's check that again. Yeah, it's Sunday. Well, it's the 19th. So you've got a week. You've got plenty of time to go through. Let's check that, where I always have our favorite document open, the assessment brief. Oh, it's actually Monday night. Sorry, that was on me. For some reason I thought it was Sunday night, but it's Monday night. So you've got a complete week. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Well, what would be the worst thing that happened there? Everybody got their assessments in early. How bad would that be? Imagine it. How good would that be? Nobody would be stressing. You could all get it finished. And then by Monday, you'd be able to relax again for a couple of weeks between units. Okay, so yes, sorry for that confusion. It is not Sunday night. It is Monday night that your date is, and it's 11:59. Please, let's go back to some basics before we start about the assessment. Okay, in this unit, they are super, super strict. So you need to get your assessment in prior to 11:59 p.m. Okay, because the minute it flicks through as being late, they're going to want me to start taking points off. Okay, so you please make sure that you have either gone through and applied for an extension and you've got that okayed. You all know how to do that. It isn't via me. Or you submit before this time, okay? Because I don't want people to be losing marks that make a difference for not having their work in on time, okay? 5 marks for the first 24 hours, 10 marks for the second 24 hours. You know, like nobody wants to be losing those kind of marks, okay? So please make sure that you have your work in on time. I know it seems it's a lot, but you know that from now until you submit it, you've actually got just over a week. You've got plenty of time to make sure you understand what you're doing. I'll say it again later, but please do email me questions. I have been getting back to people quite regularly. So make sure that you're taking the time, going through your work, checking that you've got everything, checking that you've got all sections that you've been asked to do. You've checked your work against the rubric. We'll look at this again later. This was just a sideline moment, okay? Please submit your work on time. Okay, that's the end of that one. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time this trimester, this term, 6 weeks, looking at the curriculum for 7 to 10. Okay, now if you look at the comments on the posts that Monique has made today and on the announcements that she's made and on the discussion boards, they really want you to focus on, they've been aiming for year 7 or 8. Yeah, and that's what I discussed with you quite a lot. It could be year 9 or 10. That is fine. Okay, and we've all been looking at and focusing on the WA curriculum because that's where you'd like to teach. That's where you want to work. So understanding the curriculum and how it works and how to navigate the website is going to be your top skill. Okay, you're going to be spending a lot of time on that website. There's no point in you familiarizing yourself with another state's curriculum if you're not going to be registered to teach there. Okay, does that make sense? Each state has its curriculum. Obviously, some states use ACARA, but most of them have a variation of their own. If you're planning to teach on WA, best learn this website and get to grips with it. Okay, I know I've said it before. And what's brilliant for those of you who did Pedagogy 2 first, we'll look at the word count later. Will you remind me of that question later, please, Said? Because I don't want to answer it now because we'll look at it, but we will come back to it, okay? Possibly though, but we'll look at it and what parts are going to count. All right. Just lost my flow a minute. WA curriculum. We're super lucky as well because in the WA curriculum, we have content descriptors, yeah, for year 7 and 8. And we've been through this so many times. Let me just put this one over. We have been navigating this curriculum and we'll be doing it again later. We'll be going through it, blah, blah, blah. But just today, I went back and I've added some more bits to the Padlet just wanting to make it easier for you to navigate. I'm having problems rolling down my things. So in module 2, which I know is way back, but it actually is the state curriculum, I have gone in and I've put in just PDFs that we generated. Like, you all know how to do this now. We spent time looking at this last week, of the 7 and 8 content. This is digital technologies 7 and 8. We've got digital technologies 9 and 10, design technologies 7 and 8, and design technologies 9 and 10. Okay. And the other part that we're going to remember, yes, I was saying that the students who did pedagogy 2 first, what is great about this unit is that in WA there are clear syllabus outcomes for 7 to 10, which, as you know, there are not in year 11 and 12. So that's just an adventure that you are going to get to go on if you are if you haven't done it yet. But I know some of you have done it and you remember that we had to use the aims and the skills. But in year 7 and 8, it's perfect. We have these descriptors. Yeah. So what I did was I just went on that website and I downloaded these. This is mainly so I can use it quickly and easily for your marking. Okay. So I'll be able to see really easily, you know, if you say to me an outcome, I'll be able to look it up in here super quickly and I'll know that you've used the correct words. All right. So just a sec, I actually have them in my files and folders, obviously, because I've spent some time doing them. Let's just look at the 7 and 8 one. I'm opening it in Acrobat because I actually needed it to be a bit bigger. So I know for some of you, you'll be like, why is she repeating herself? But you know that we're going to go through this a lot. So in design technology for year 7 and 8, there is only really one outcome for each of the specialist areas. Yeah. And you would use all of that. Yeah. So you would use this and this code. Now it already tells you where some links are, and this is going to be good for your planning document, because in your planning document, you need to show the cross-curricular priorities and the general capabilities. These are the general capabilities. Yeah. So they have them like this. Now in the, lost my folder again. Here we go. In the Digitech year 7 and 8 one, each one has a few more. So for instance, you can see that there are a couple to go in. However, in both of them, the part that is the same is your design thinking skills. Yeah. So they're pretty similar, but in this one, you can see that we've got costs in year 8, but you don't have costs in year 7. Yeah, it's another layer to it. So they're slightly different. So what you would copy is you would say, like I would go for that whole part. Yeah. The whole part for project management. I would go for, if you were doing that one, I would copy all of that. However, if I was doing this one, I would also copy, I don't know if I can't do it in Acrobat. I can't copy it, you know, I would have investigate and defining, then I'd have the parts that I was doing. Okay. So these documents are in the Padlet. I've added them in today, but you all know how to get them now. Yeah. We're going in, you're in your WA syllabus. When we go into our WA syllabus, I got them through this, through going into the export PDF and only choosing, I only chose the content descriptor and I just had the general capabilities there. Okay. So let's get back on track for a moment. Where's our presentation? Fantastic. So whether you have a design brief or a design situation doesn't matter for you for your task, unless you're doing this as one of your resource, okay? Because you're doing your unit plan. So we don't need to look, I always call it a design brief. So that's when the students have got almost like a document that that tells them the ins and outs of it. However, a design situation could be a bit wider. Now, so when you're looking at work, and this is really important in technologies, these examples that we're going to look at are all design technology examples, okay? However, that doesn't matter because, as you're all aware, there are going to be, when you get work that's finished from you, the work's going to be of different levels, even if the task was the same. And that's not just because students... All right, I am just going to skip. We're coming back to this in a second. I will focus on the question I've just had here. So, in design technologies, you would only have you would have more than one code, because you would be choosing codes from your design thinking skills section about where in the project you would be. So for everybody, we're doing the first 4 weeks of a term, therefore it's going to be the first 4 weeks of a project. So for most people, you're going to be looking at these skills. Yeah. You might not get as far as producing and implementing in a 4-week cycle, okay? Because the whole cycle is bound to be a term for a project, which would be probably planning for 10 weeks, but maybe 8 weeks. So you've got some extra time. And that would cover everything. Yeah, that's what you would get through in that time. But during 4 weeks, you might actually only do project management and investigating and defining. That is up to you, whether you get as far as designing. But if you are choosing food as your specialist area for this unit, you have to have the food code, yeah, which is a bit bigger. So you would choose all of that. Oh, sorry, let me just go out a bit longer. Yeah. So you would be like, my focus area is food. It's going to be food specialization. And that's what they need to be able to do. And you would have that outcome. You wouldn't be, for design technologies in one unit, yeah, generally choosing more than one of these. So if you were doing engineering, it's just going to be this. These are your general capabilities. Sorry, I always get those confused. So you would be focusing on this outcome if you have chosen engineering. Yeah. Does that answer your question? So you would be focusing on an area. If you were doing woodwork or material, you would be doing materials technology. So you would be focusing on this one. That would be your main outcome. And then I would be having these ones because you need them to be able to understand how to plan and manage a project. And you would start doing investigating and defining. You might get as far as designing. But in 4 weeks, you might get, I'm not saying you can't get to producing and implementing, but it depends on what your project, sorry, I just have moved something out of the way of my feet. It depends what your project is, yeah? You want to be looking at something realistic. Okay, just 1 second. Right, I'm going into here. Oh, digital systems. I just saw there are 2. So whoever said that, you're doing year 7. I see what you're saying. Perfect. Yes, For year 7, there are often only one. Some of them have 2. So the same applies. Yeah, exactly the same applies. And that is perfect. So the bit that you've copied in here, sorry, Aditi, your example one, that's perfect. But you would just use, sorry, you know, I have like a 2-second memory. So you would use that information at the beginning, yeah, in your unit. You would also use, that you would probably start to look at this, not digital design, thinking skills, and this area as well. Okay. Does this make sense for you all, what I'm saying? So you're all going to choose your focus area. Okay. So in year 7 or 8, you don't want to be trying and mixing it up, especially not at first. Okay. Like, make it easy for you. Later, as you get more proficient, you'll be able to do units that combine some digital technologies and some design technologies. But today, right here, right now, you're not looking to, yes, right, you're not looking to reinvent the wheel. Okay, you're going simple. You're going to choose at least sort of 3 outcomes, and that would be your subject area. And yes, it would be my expectation that you would copy it directly. So if you were doing year 8 data representation, yeah, I would want that whole bit, because I would need to know. It just helps. Data representation, digital systems represent data, and then that code. The code is key. Yeah. And all of this, you're copying word for word. Do you remember in the video that Monique did for you all? This is the first time ever this is what you're looking for. When you put your unit of work into the Turnitin like sample, like assessment 2 testing thing, you want it to show this as an exact match. Yeah, I want to see that this is an exact match. Does that make sense to you all? That, weirdly, that's what we're looking for. Not in your whole unit, only in places. Yeah, but in your plan, do I have the plan open? No, I don't. I'll get that open later, obviously. But that's what we're looking for. So your syllabus outcomes are going to be word for word. Yeah. Do not make it easy. You're literally copying and pasting them. Yeah. You can format them so they fit nicely in the space, but word for word, they are the same. Okay. So I just want to remind you that hopefully everything that we do today, every little bit, any questions you ask, anything we look at is all designed. It's all designed to help you do better with assessment 2, to have a deeper understanding of assessment 2, but also it's here to help you have an understanding of how planning works as a teacher. Yeah. Now, when you go into schools, you will be given like your unit plan. It will be there. And so what you're learning about here is so you know how to read the unit plan. Okay. So if you went to a school and you were given a 10-week plan, you would understand that they're designed for teachers to read. They're designed so a teacher understands what they're doing every lesson. They don't give you minute by minute plans for every lesson, because that's what you'll do in your 1 lesson plan that you're going to do. As a teacher, you're given this framework and really and a set of resources that support it, but you'll build your own resources. Yeah. Very similar to how it is in this unit. Yeah, we all are doing the same unit. There's like, I think there's over 500 students in this unit this time. Everybody's doing the same unit and the same core content and focus, the pedagogy, the understanding about the classrooms and the projects. We're all doing that the same, but then we're spending time looking at the specifics of your state's syllabus and your state's curriculum. So that's why, you know, as we've worked through it, I've tried to add resources that I think support more. Oh, you're doing a 1 hour plan in another one. In this one, your plan is for a 55-minute lesson, I think. Oh, and your whole unit. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Raul. I'm going to look that course code up after. Okay. So it is different across the board and across the things. But all of these skills, navigating the syllabus, understanding about pedagogy, understanding how classrooms work, they're going to support you across the board. Okay, so the more units you do in this course, the more familiar you're becoming onto them. All of you are at different places in your study. Okay, so as things go through, you'll get a deeper understanding and more competence, and you'll understand how we go through. What we're going to look at today is making sure that you don't miss anything. So first of all, we're looking at like how you mark work or how you give feedback. So you're supporting everybody. Like some pieces of work are going to be better than others, and some are going to be less. So they're saying here that this piece isn't perfect, like you can still see some of the nails at the side, maybe the joins aren't quite perfect, but some levels of this could be higher, like maybe the artwork, which isn't really part of the assessment. So this gives another example here of different outcomes. Like this isn't my speciality area, DT, but I can tell you straight away what some of the points of difference in some of these are, yes, in this task. So all of them have created a light, and I can see that it's based on a cartoon character of some kind, and we've got different things. Now, when we look at some of these, and then we look at maybe this one, which I can see has had everything cut out. Can you see around the edge? So if that was done with a handsaw, they've done the design, they've cut it out, and they've thought about where their cartoon character sits on the light, so to speak. Yeah. So they've got a bit of an idea, whereas some of them might just have done, this doesn't look as hard technically, because this was probably the size of the piece of wood they were all given. So every student was given a piece of wood all the same size, and these are the different things that they've come out with it. So you can see maybe this student's just kept the size, drawn a more simple character and done the light as a nose. Whereas you can see in this one here, I've just changed slides, this one here, you know, almost not the same monster, but they've cut out the eyes and gone around it. Yeah. So starting to think how different things work. This is the same for digital technologies. So we get projects. I think there are even some notes in this little bit. Okay. So here students have got a project that they've designed solutions for. And this is an example of how we can use project-based learning. Okay. And how we could develop that over. So what I'm going to be looking at now is when we start to think, just a sec, I'm just going to find my files another minute. I'm just going to search through here to find the lesson plan again from the other day. Perfect. Because I just want us to talk about, no, that's not the one. Oh, where's my lesson plan? Okay, well, I will come back to that. I don't know why everything's open here. No. Okay, I will find the one on the unit in a minute. What we're looking at here is how with a technology unit, a really good idea is to start with a problem or a question. Okay, so when we're thinking about project-based learning, that's giving students a problem or a question that they can solve. Okay, so last week when we were talking about this, I was thinking, oh, what are some ideas? What are some ideas of what we could do? One of the things that I decided on is that I was going to do something about food waste. So I wanted to look at data on food waste in Australia, maybe specifically WA. I'd look at like websites like Food Bank, Oz Harvest, and things like that. So I want students to learn about food waste. But when we look in a lesson plan, so, oh, I've got some of the WA ones out here. So this is the one that we've looked at a few times, which is the Data Australis one. Okay, so we're going to talk about diversity and those things later. But what we wanted to have is a rationale. Yeah. So in our, I'm just going to download it again because it just makes it easier, doesn't it? Lesson, no, I don't want that one. I want the unit plan template. Oh, I probably did have it. Okay, so we've looked at this quite a lot of times, and now I have downloaded it again. So the section I'm talking about now is almost like your unit name and the rationale. Okay, where we're going to change the color of the font because I just don't know why it's yellow because I can't see anything. So the idea of the rationale is UCone. So this is something that you can do towards the end. You can perfect your rationale once you've come up with your idea. Okay, so I wanted to do a unit and I wanted it to be about food waste. And I was going to use the data outcomes as well and a project, but really what I needed was a way to get students engaged because that's what you want about at first. Yes, you do use that unit template if you can. Okay, I know some of you might have one from other units, but they're all pretty similar. This one does have all these pages of different things that you might encounter in yours because this is from a specific school, but the main things are the same. So as I stated before, you would copy this table, which I will just do now, because this is going to be week 1. And in week 1, you're going to have a learning focus. In fact, your learning focus could be in here for week 1. I would just move that over there. And for week 1, you're going to have maybe 4 lessons because that's what they are. Then you're going to copy your table. I'm going to place it here. And here I'm going to crazily go week 2. Okay. And you've got your 4 lessons. Obviously, these are probably going to go to like at least a page, like, you know, you're going to be able to get your pages on. All right. And then underneath, I'm going to paste my other one. And it's going to be week 3 with my learning focus. And then week 4. That's just a starting point. Okay. So we've got those. Now for each week, I'd look at the learning focus, but for the minute, I'm going to look into this part, okay? So I decided I wanted to do something about food waste, but I couldn't come up with a question, yeah? Now, I needed a question. Oh, yeah, I don't know. They should let you tick them like this. So if you double click on it, if you can find a tick, I can never find the tick. So you could just go, or you could just go like this and put an X in it, I think. Oh. Let's go. X. That's how I do it, because they're actually, these are actually, I know that's why, it's because that is actually a wingding, it's not a tick box. Does that make sense? Or alternatively, what I would do is I would delete the ones that I'm not using. Yeah. So for example, I'd probably I'm going to do a folio. Yeah. Maybe it's going to have a research task and it might have a quiz and a thing in. I would just get rid of the ones you don't want. Okay. Include the ones you do have. Now, remember, the weighting usually, yeah, I think using just delete the ones you aren't using, particularly on this page. Yeah, you've got a lot of things here and you want to refer back to this page as you're doing your planning. It's 4 weeks. You've got 4 weeks. You cannot be having all of these. Okay. Also, we're teaching design technology. So you might have a report, you might have a custom, but you're most likely to have something to do with procedures. Yeah. It's unlikely you're going to have narratives. Yeah. ICT skills. This is what we talked about. These are the digital things. Yes, you're probably going to have word processing. You might even have some PowerPoint. If you're doing data, you're going to have Excel anyway. Pretty much everything we do. Also, can we all note here, because we are, yeah, there's so many, I wouldn't worry about it. Because we are actually, a lot of us here are IT people, and we know that actually Excel is just a spreadsheet. So you have no need to have Excel and spreadsheets. What you should be using, you should be saying, let's just get rid of Excel. You should never use the name of the software, always the type of software. So let's get rid. This should actually say, makes me angry, sorry. let's not have a brand. Let's just talk about what we're doing. Let's not talk about a brand. Okay. So, have a go. All of these are a lot. Yeah. This page, just get rid of things. You might be doing some interpreting because you might be looking at it. You might be analyzing data. You do not need to have hundreds of these. I mean, let's face it, pretty much every day in every lesson for nearly every child in the world, these 4 things are happening. Yeah. Are they activities that we are doing that meet learning styles? Probably not. So for me, this is just a lot. Okay. So focus on what the few things that you want to focus on. Do this at the very, very end, after you've done your questions. Okay. When you have your tasks thought out. Okay. Don't worry about this. This is actually a lot. I've not seen this in a teaching program before, so it's not core. It'll just give you some ideas. Yeah, the strategy mapping. But don't worry about that part as much. We need to be looking at these ones. Okay. So I wanted, because students learn about food waste. Like for you and me, maybe we're starting to think about things, but that doesn't give me a good idea about the topic or the project. Yeah. So to refine my question, yeah, and this is the points that you want to go. I wanted a really good question that would be linking to technologies and would get students thinking. And this sort of thing works really well. So rather than have students will learn about food waste, I decided, and I'm being honest with you here, I put in the year group I put in the year group, I put in WA, I put in digital technologies, and I put in the syllabus outcome that I wanted to meet. Yeah, the main ones. And I was like, I need an inquiry question for this. And I used AI to help me come up with my question, because I knew what I wanted the students to be doing, but I didn't know what would be that really good question that would get them hooked in. Okay, so I decided I didn't go with the first one. I wanted something that would give the students an idea of what they were going to be doing, but also would give a teacher an idea of what they were doing. And this is what I came up with in the end. So I'm just going to put that in there. So that's the inquiry question that I came up with. And that's what I'm going to give as the unit topic name. Yeah. Okay, so I might have gone for year 8 in the end. I can't remember. Let's just say year 8. And this is going to have a focus. It's going to be digital technologies. You know, my 2-second memory. Where's my little files? Let's have a look. Digital technologies. And I am going to go with, oh, I haven't even got them chosen here. Let's have a look. Oh, I have them open here, don't I, from earlier. Digital technologies, year 8. And I wanted this one. So I'm going to go, that's going to be my main focus. Sorry. Yeah, that's the main focus, even though I'm going to be using the design skills. And then I'm going to go here. Really, I should have done them from a Word document because that would be easier to copy and paste from. But I've gone for this one. And here, let's bulleted list. Let's make it black. Let's put a bulleted list in. And then let's go. And as I said before, copying and pasting. I'm actually going to have that just a sec at the start because it just looks better. There we go. And I need that to be up there. Get rid of that. So that's my first outcome. Yeah. And then I'm going to go in. I forgot where I am. I'm not going to do all of these. I'm just showing you. Okay. I'm also going to have, I'll just get rid of all. I'm going to copy it like this first of all. And then I'm going to get rid of them, the bits that I don't want. Here we go. Shift Control V. So that's, yeah, it's easier to do it from Word because Word actually goes through. But notice on these ones, I've included project management. Then I've got the boom, boom. I'm going to go like that. Yeah. And then this is the other one. X. And that goes there. Oh. Okay. Is that clear with everyone? So those are going to go in. Obviously, these are not done. I haven't done them properly yet. I just did a first 2 to really show you how you'd set it up. Yeah. So I've got that. That's the focus. So I've got my, you will say digital or design, and I've got my main focus area, which is that outcome. Yeah. Now, the others are from the design thinking because they're going to be doing with how I get to Oh, I've already got the start of another one. Now, these are the general capabilities and the cross-curriculum priorities. Yeah. So I don't need to have those there. I can probably put those here. Yeah. So these bits, let's go. Just a sec. Let me see which bit you mean. Oh, no. Assessment. We're going to look at that. Do not leave it blank. These are general capabilities. It says you're going to identify how they've been put in your teaching. We'll look at that. Here's those ones. So I've got personal and social, and we've got, I'm just copying them out of here for the moment, okay? And putting them here. Oh, let's go. There we go. Okay. All right. So, and here you will just, it says like describe how they're going to be embedded. And you can just say, I would just link them to the curriculum codes there, or you can describe it later. In fact, you'll probably be able to describe it as you go through your teaching. Yeah. Your cross-curriculum priorities. So for this unit, I've decided I'm doing, let's see if we can have a think. I'm doing, how can we design a solution to reduce food waste in our school? Which cross-curriculum priorities or priorities do you think that would meet? Okay. Sustainability. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I would definitely have sustainability on there. Obviously, it seems to naturally lead into that one. Okay. So it could be that yours links with Asia and Australia and Australia's place in Asia. It could be that you're doing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of learning, which also is brilliant to fit in with design technologies. Yeah. So in here, let's get rid of that. I'm just going to have sustainability. If I've spelt it right, that's quite amazing. Sustainability, and then I'd put in that, like where it's going to meet. Okay, so here I would have, they're going to be researching food waste in Australia and the impact of food waste on the environment and ways to reduce it in their local environment. So that leads into this social capability, because that's thinking about your community, having it as part of the school. Okay. All right. So this part, the assessment. Now, do you recall from last week, or for what we've looked at now, or for what you just know generally in life, what are the 3 bits of assessment that you're definitely going to be including in this unit? Does anyone remember the terms that we use for them? You can type them in the chat or you can speak up. Yes, formative, summative. Yes, assessment for learning, good use of acronyms. I like it. All right. So in here, assessment of learning, not like the old internet thing. Anyway, so here I would have definitely your summative assessment listed here, what you're going to have at the end of the 4 weeks, how you're going to assess their learning of the 4 weeks. Now, remember, this doesn't have to be the full completed project. This could just be, it just needs to be a point that they are being assessed then. Okay, so here, what's my question again? How can we do? Oh, so I'm going to be really fancy this time. I'm going to have diagnostic, just because I like them. Class about demean. All right, and then I'm going to go formative. Yeah, in fact, maybe I'll put it on a new line because I just don't like things to look out of balance. Yeah, and then I'm going to have summative. And I'm going to go, so here I'm going to be like lesson 1. I'm marking that, yeah, week 1, lesson 1. This one I haven't decided yet because obviously I haven't designed my unit of work. We're just going, but I would probably do a similar thing and add week 1, you know, formative, probably 2 weeks in. And maybe that would be a demonstration of some of the research that they've done on food waste and some of the stats. So just maybe getting a short, so this is one of the things where you could demonstrate how it meets different lights of student. Yeah, you can do, sorry, off to the notes. You can do a mini project that's only going to take 4 weeks. If you think you can do a full project, so you're going to cover all the areas of the project design life cycle and you could do it in 4 weeks, yes, do a mini project. Having all 3 assessment types in just 4 weeks, is it a lot? No, because the classroom discussion, the diagnostic, are they even going to notice that? That is literally a discussion that you're doing with the class where you start talking about it. Yeah. Now, you might create a mind map on the board, on digitally or by pen. Yeah. But when we talk about assessment and we look at the different ways of learning, remember, some of them are just for you as a teacher. Yeah. They're not like a test that the student has to do when we talk about assessment. They're just a way that you're assessing their understanding at that point in time. Okay. Does that make more sense to you? So, you know, if you're using exit tickets, which you might use at the end of the lesson, yeah. So I could use that. I'm just going to have that. Thank you. Exit ticket. I haven't thought about the topic. Topic pending. Yeah. So just at the end of a class, you're again questions. Asking students questions and them giving you answers to assess their understanding. Right. Okay, Deccan, interesting fact. Although most technology subjects are elective, in year 7 and 8, they are not elective. They are part of the core curriculum that all students in Australia in all states must complete. However, you are correct that they might not have any prior knowledge. So if you were doing year 7, that's one of the good things about year 7. You're basing this on them not having any knowledge, really. However, the concept of food waste, they're probably going to have an understanding of it. Maybe they know something of it. Maybe, you know, like, what is food waste? Do we waste food after school? Like, even in primary schools, they will have seen that there'll have been drives about minimizing the waste and having different bins to put things in and how you can do that. Yeah. So just assessing what they know already doesn't have to be specific to technologies. You're finding out what they know about something. So if you were doing material technology, and a few people chose a topic about a desk organizer, like making a desk organizer or a mobile phone holder. All of them have got ideas about different things that you could use to organize stuff. Yeah. So you're just trying to get them thinking about the task, like getting their heads in the space. Okay. The assessment doesn't have to be, I don't like that bit being bold. So the the assessments don't have to be explicit, like we're sitting down, we're doing a test, I'm going to give you a mark. Okay. They have to be explicit when you get to the summative one that they're doing in the end. Okay, so for me, this one is going to be, all right, if I was doing the full unit, that they're going to have a, oh, sorry, I've gotten things. So my one here is they are going to video, article, article that yes, this is what we've been saying. So just 1 second. We've been talking about where summative assessment comes. That explains. So summative assessment would come at the end. Some people earlier asked if they could do a mini unit. So if you were doing a short unit that's really concise and you could do it in 4 weeks, yes, you would have your summative assessment at the end. You may, however, only have one at 4 weeks, but you need to demonstrate that you've got an understanding of these things. Okay, so does that make sense for you? Summative assessment is a point where they're demonstrating their understanding. So you could have it, you could have that everybody creates, you know, like here, let me just make it a little bit bigger. So here I've put that they've designed a solution. But if it was only in 4 weeks, maybe I'm going to get them to a presentation that explains their solution and their ideas for how to make it. That's not good language. That is just what we're coming up with right here. Yeah, we can perfect the language. So you might get them to do like a small article or a podcast, or, you know, we're thinking about different learners, them choosing different ways to present it, but you're showing that you know what different assessment styles are. Does that make sense? Does that help answer your question? I hope so. Do you know what? It is up to you. You don't have to say. So we looked at earlier, there was that little document today in the announcement from Monique, and it had those 3 learning types. The first one, which is basically what you do for, and the last one are for teachers. Only the middle one is for students. Does that make sense? So whatever you call them, it will be. All right. I know, I'm off on a tangent. Right. First of all, we're just going to go back to this. So whichever ones you do are up to you. You might have seen other ones. What we need to see is that you've got an understanding. Yeah. So now I know, for instance, this one, that you've got an understanding of different ways of setting up and doing. Yeah. You know how and when you're going to assess students. Now, nobody's expecting this to be like, this is something that you're probably going to look at again. No, you don't need to create the assessment unless the assessment is your resource. Okay, so we will look at this again. So, for instance, I now know that for lesson, I don't know why all of this is in a funny color. Let me just get this to black so we can work with it. Okay, this isn't going to be my first activity here. Yeah, but it is going to be my second activity. We talked about the first activity, which is probably going to be introduce the class to the, the inquiry, question, and the focus of the term. Okay, yeah. So here I'm going to do this, understand what they're going to do, right? No, so we don't need to create, you do not need to create the assessment task. The parts that you do need to create, you're going to have your 4 weeks. That's what we've looked at. That's what we've been looking at. You're going to provide the materials for one of these lessons, okay? So for one of these lessons, so remembering that the lessons that you're creating, is that in here? No, that's another one. I did have it open already. How useless is that? Yes, you can choose any week's lesson. Oh, here we go. Thank goodness I found all that hard work we've done. I'm just going to press save there before I lose it. Yes, but you're going to remember, yeah, you're going to remember that your lessons are going to be sequenced. So week 1 is obviously going to be an introduction, yeah? So your first lessons this week are going to be introducing your topic, your classes, what you're going to do. So, and then you're going to pick one of these lessons, and that's what you're going to focus on for your lesson plan and your resource. Does that make sense? Yeah, right. It doesn't matter which week you do your lesson plan for or which week you do your resource for. You need to demonstrate in your lesson plan that you are going to be able to meet the unit outcomes that you've identified. So for instance, that little task I'm doing the beginning of the week, I haven't even put all of mine in. So I would definitely be doing this one, I would say. Yeah. But I would also be starting to look at this one. Yeah. So I'd probably be doing those 2 in my first week. I'd be looking at them again in other times, but I wouldn't be analysing and validating data yet, unless I had a sample data set that I wanted to go through. Now, this leads me to something I think I was going to talk about later, but I'm going to talk about now. If you're teaching year 7 this, okay, you are going to need to teach them some skills. No, you're not meeting all the outcomes in week 1. No, that's not possible. I'm just saying no. You're only going to have 4 that you're going to do for this unit or mini unit, okay? You would probably only do the same, you'd maybe have 5 for the whole time, because if you're doing a full unit, you would include all of these ones, yeah? If you are doing a full unit, or if you're doing a mini unit, 1 second, just a second, I'm going to talk about your question in a second. You're going to need to do all, so you're going to need to do project management, investigating and defining, investigating, designing, producing and implementing and evaluating, because that's the life cycle, okay? That's why I said if you only do 4 weeks, you might only get through a couple of these. Yeah, perfect. So now I'm going back to my question. If I'm teaching analyze and validate data using spreadsheets to draw conclusions and make predictions, yeah, yes, you would still put the learning outcome in the week if you're linking it to that one. You can just say analyzing. So you could just have that. Here we go. There's a lot of copying and pasting in this. So if I was doing that, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in probably this lesson. So this is just a sec. Don't worry about the elaboration. I also talked about that with somebody. Right. Yeah, that's the outcome. But this time I'm putting in my elaboration. We can't copy the elaboration because there isn't really any. Yeah, if you look, we could go back to, oh, sorry, where's my, here, we don't really have any more information. If we look back on here, this one, here we go. If I go back into here, just let me go. Oh, which one am I in? Sorry, I have to look. Yes. No, I'm going to go into digital technologies a minute. There are 4 spaces, but you don't need to do them in depth because you're only doing one lesson in depth. Sorry, I'm just going into this a moment so we can look at our I'm getting rid of those. I'm just going to go. I think I said mine was year 8, and I'm going to have all that information. So, yes, here we go. So we do not have elaborations. We have examples. Okay. So for this one, maybe I'm just going to use this. But actually, before this, we're going to look at those things. So maybe, this is my lesson plan. No, this is my lesson plan. There we go. Yeah. But actually here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bold and underline. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, italicize and underline. Yeah, that the focus is analyze. However, this is something I want you to think about. If you're doing spreadsheets with year 7 or anything to do spreadsheets, what are your first lessons going to be? Just off the top of your heads, have a think. Yeah, what is Excel? All right, so spreadsheets. You could be using Excel. You might be using Google Sheets, okay? So that's why I said focus on the language of spreadsheets rather than the name of the product, okay? So yes, you're going to be talking to them about what is a spreadsheet, what does it look like? You're going to be doing cells, rows, like cell, like C1, A1. You might be doing some basics of formula because they might know how to use it, but they might not. And you're going to have students that have come from different schools. If you're in year 7, that's the thing, they're going to have different knowledge. So you're going to be running through what's a spreadsheet, what's a cell reference. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot that word. Rows, columns, cell references. What's a graph? How do we look at a graph? What's an X and a Y axes? Okay, so you might have some sample data spreadsheets for them to look at and just get an idea of that. So don't forget, in design technologies, you think it's easy because you've got your skills, you're going to do your tools. What are your tools? How do you use your tools? It is the same for digital technologies. Yeah. If you're using the internet, how do we do keyword searches? You might be using, like most schools are using AI. So you might be using AI in the classroom and demonstrating how that works, what's an effective prompt. But you need to teach the skills. So you're always going to need to have some skill lessons, okay? So if you're doing UX design, yeah, you can do the topic and they can do the research and you can teach them the skills in the second week. I'm just making sure that we're all aware that particularly for year 7, well, for everybody, because even if you were doing year 9 or 10, you're going to be doing like spreadsheets and data analysis at a higher level. So you're always going to need to teach the skills that match the project. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do skills. So that could be skills with like user interface design. What does good user interface? You might be doing sketching. You might be doing 3D design. You might be doing how to use CAD program. Okay, like everything. You've got to remember that you have your skills as well for this. Okay, if they don't have those core knowledge and understanding, how will they be able to develop the whole project? Yeah, you can't expect them to make you a movie, like a film about something, if you haven't run through how to use, might be Microsoft Stream, it could be Canva. There isn't a specific number that we've been given, but the number of lessons on the example one is like that there are at least 3. Yeah, so let's just say 3 lessons. Okay, it doesn't say it anywhere, but do not give me 1 lesson a week because that is not a unit of work. Okay, what we need to show in here is that you're making the progression 3. Oh, does it? I missed that. I've been through the task description so many times. Thank you. We'll be going back. Oh, they've updated it. 7 to 10. So I'm just doing a quick reading. Oh, online. Thank you. Yeah. You see, people are always changing things, but we will have a look. Let's go into the... We're going back in. Perfect. You're going to be using the same outcomes over and over again, okay? Sorry, I'm just reading through this. Perfect, yes. 3 lessons per week. Amazing. Thank you. I've read this so many times and I have missed that. So I think it has been updated. The first 4 weeks, 3 lessons per week. 4 progressive weeks. Each lesson is progressive. You will often have the same outcomes, okay? But you've just got to make sure that you're clearly stating where they're going to be mating. So I'm not going to be saying sports data. I'm going to have in here, oh, if I could spell, I'd be doing, because I'm doing food waste, so I'm going to have food waste data. Yeah. Okay, so your outcomes, you've just got to make sure that the content of what you're doing is going to cover that. Yeah. How you start your lessons, remembering I said last week that we'd have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah. So you're going to every week, even if every lesson, even if they're carrying on with something from the last lesson, you're going to do a brief intro, or you're going to have to start them thinking about something. Okay. Yeah. You've got to remember that we're going to be including in here, like it's good to have a problem, yeah, to have your design thinking in there, they're solving a problem. We've also talked about how you're going to have your cross-curriculum priorities in, yeah, and your general capabilities. And the great part of the WA curriculum for this is it's telling you which ones are in. Yeah. So when we go into here and you pick your outcomes, they tell you numeracy and digital literacy. So for instance, yeah, well, I'll talk about that in a second, and don't worry, Declan, I can tell you, there's many a story. So we've got, I'm just going to talk about numeracy and literacy in particular, because you need to make it explicit in your unit where you're meeting that, right? So for instance, we've just talked about here, I'm using spreadsheets. So I'm also going to be using, yeah, I'm just going to put it here, numeracy, okay? And then I'm going to be doing that, understanding how spreadsheets work and numbers going through, okay? All right. So you're going to, I'm just going to talk about this. You're going to link those across. You're going to have like your literacies in it. So I've put numeracy here, but actually once I've started doing my activities, I would just add numeracy at the end of the one. Yeah. When we start to analyze data. Yeah. I'm identifying that straight away as numeracy. In the beginning, I'm going to also have my keywords and terms, our technical language. So spreadsheet, row, cell reference, that's literacy. Yeah, your subject specific knowledge. All right. Just before we go on break, we are going to answer this question that Declan has put on there. Just be confident and have fun. I am a trained, like a computer teacher. I was computing, IT, software design and development. I have taught food, woodwork, only to year 7 and 8, woodwork, a little bit of engineering. Yeah, like what happens is that often, although you might be a specialist for year 11 and 12, and maybe for 9 and 10, where there are electives, when you go to do placements in schools, sometimes they just don't offer those electives, or in technologies, they do. We talked about this at the beginning of this unit. So as there are like all that range of technologies, so there's like food, materials, engineering, digital technologies, yeah. You might have one class in a year and every term they do a different technology, or every trimester in year 7 and 8. So they do one semester, sorry. So 2 times they do one of digital technologies, one of food, one of materials, and one of engineering. And you might be the teacher that teaches all 4. Or you might be the teacher that teaches the same thing and a class goes round. So when you go into your placements, especially your first ones, yeah, we can go through it. We're going to go through it in the next lesson, the lesson plan template. So when you go into your schools, just, I said, see as many classes as you can. You want to be going and seeing teachers in every different classroom, because how people set things up will help you understand just how lessons run. So yes, it could happen. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it won't be your last experience of what you're calling home economics, but it's now normally called food technology. Okay, perfect. Right, 2 things. It's just about 20 past. We're going to break until 1/2 past. Okay, we're going to have 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, think of any questions that you have. All right, questions you have. Then we are going to talk about the lesson plan. Yeah. And what that looks about and how you're going to pull that out. Right. Fantastic, everybody. As always, I'm just going to turn my camera off and the sound off. I'll leave this up. You can look at this just for the excitement. Obviously, it's not finished in any way. but we've talked about how we could start to put this together. All right, so I will see you all in 10 minutes and we'll be back. Think of any questions. Don't type them in until I come back because I won't be able to read them all. Okay, perfect. See you in Sorry, I just got carried away looking at something a moment. I am just going to share, I'm going to share the link with you all in the chat. And perfect. And we're going to talk about the word limit. Great, reminding me. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, no, that's not the lesson. Just a sec. Oh, where's it gone? Oh, I had this great lesson plan 1 second ago, and now I've just lost it. Here we go. Let's go through there. Okay. So I have just found this and I am sharing it with you. This is an example of an ICT lesson plan. It's not in the same format, but this is just to give you another sample. And this is something, it was one just that I found on my searches on spreadsheets. Okay, perfect. So first we're going to look at the lesson plan, but then before that, we're going to look at the assessment brief again and the word count. So last week, we talked about this. So copied curriculum content is excluded from the word count. Okay, so 6,000 words might not be that bad because I'm just going to flick to this a moment. So everything in here, like all of this, doesn't count. Yeah, all of that doesn't count. To start with, so let's assume the template that we've used. Obviously, I've made some changes, but let's have a look. I did have the original open here. So this original template that we had 656 words on it. Okay. Yeah, this one. You're not going to be including in your word count any of the bits that you've copied from the curriculum. So it's going to be pretty hard to work out, okay? You're not going to count any of that. So here it just said copied curriculum content. 2,000 words. You might, from 6,000, we might want to get it down a bit. But I would say I'm not going to look at your resource. Your resource is in no way part of your word count in my eyes, okay? I will pass that information on to Ferry, who will be doing some marking again, I think, this time. So I'm just going to be like, your resource doesn't count. But your lesson plan and your teaching unit do count. All the bits that you've used from the syllabus don't. So where you use cross-curriculum priorities, all of that. So I'm going to say straight away, you know, it's nearly 700 words off your word count because that was the template to start with. Okay. Then you're going to take off all your curriculum things. So it's going to be very hard for you to work out your word count anyway. The parts of your word count that I will be looking for are these as follows. This section, yeah, which is probably going to be like a bit of words. Then when we get down to here, I will not be counting, okay, outcome, elaboration, or whatever we're putting in there. Yeah. When I said earlier to somebody, I said, you don't need to make your own elaborations up, but you can just put in the parts that you need that are relevant from the WA curriculum. Okay. But all of these sections will count. Yeah. All of these sections will count. Okay. Also, so really this top one, you're going to be able to get rid of most of this because this is just giving you an idea of what goes in. All right. So you're going to put yours in these three ones. Your outcome and your elaboration are not in the word count. Right. And I'm not going to count your resource because that shouldn't count in it. All right. Now we're going to look at your lesson plan. Okay. Any of your other questions, I am skipping through them to have a look at. So, oh, was this the sample one I did earlier that was online earlier? Yes. So you've got this one. We've got this sample lesson plan. You know your lesson's going to run for about 50 minutes. You know your rate. You don't need to worry about a date. Yeah, can you see here? They've used some of their outcomes here, and that's the success criteria. Okay, this part, yeah, that part is from the lesson plan. And you can say, no, you do not need to, right. I don't think that your lesson plan is going to be, let's have a look. This one, this sample here, yeah, is 889 words in total. Okay, so this is the sample one. All right, so we've got these things. This is like the first lesson, and they've got all this sort of thing. Don't copy this, but you could have some similar things. Okay, remembering you're going to need to have, you've got your diversity and inclusion in there, and you're also thinking about in here, just noting when you could do a bit of assessment. So remembering assessment doesn't have to be something like, it could just be exit tickets. It could be questioning. It could be them creating a mind map or something. Okay. So here you've got this, create a quick PMI. So plus, minus, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure she did. So that's what I'm saying to you. I'm not super concerned about the word count. We've not been looking at it, but 2,000 words in your lesson plan is probably going to be a lot, is what I'm saying to you. You would be better for using your word count in your unit and then making sure that you get your lesson plan. So here we've got the key things that you need in your lesson plan. You've got your timings. Yeah, they're just rough. Okay, so your exit routine, remember we've talked about this before, having these sorts of things at the beginning and the end. So this time you're explicitly saying it. You do not need to have exit routine throughout your through your lesson plans. Yeah, oh, not your lesson plan, through your unit. Okay, so you don't write in every single lesson here exit strategy. Yeah, because that'd be part of it. Do we create our lesson plan on our placement, or do we just follow an existing one? There is a lesson plan template in the assessment task on Blackboard. Just sec here. So if you go in here into assessment 2, there is a lesson plan template. Okay, and that will look similar. That's the lesson plan template. So that's just giving you some ideas for it. And then we've got the sample one, which was shared with you as well. Okay, so this, but do you remember she did say that there isn't enough information in this one, but this is to give you an idea how to fill it out. So if you are using YouTube, I wouldn't have like resources. I would have here, like for example, I would go video, I'm just going to put spreadsheets like that there because you don't want to have it. And then I would have a hyperlink. Can't believe it's been so long. I've used a word. There we go. A hyperlink. And I would go in. Let me just say I've copied this one from YouTube from earlier. And I'm going to have, oh my God, this looks like the oldest version of Word I've ever seen. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that will just work. That was odd. Okay. Yeah. Now in this newer version, I can click on links. So you would have this like that. Okay. I would have any links that I'm going to use in the class, which we're going to look at some examples for. I would actually be having, just a sec, where's my, this is the one that I liked the best, like how spreadsheets work. So I know, like, yeah, there's no point in typing it all out every time. And then I'd have my link. Oh, wow. This is, don't know what happened there. Anyway, I would go through my link and I would have all the resources in here. Like, otherwise you might, oh God, don't know what's happened to this today. There we go. I've put that one in. I'm going to show you some of the resources. I would also have here, just say, my content is not matched to the content that they've done. I've just been doing, so I would have worksheet. Yep. Just for the few things in there. Okay. So those are the resources, just to make sure that you know what your resources are. So then if I was doing, maybe I'd be having like my worksheet, that's probably not enough for a resource. Maybe I'd make a presentation, which was all about how to use a spreadsheet and labeling and have some samples in there for them. Okay. So you would have everything. The key things about your lesson plan are you're linking it. You've got your outcomes. You've copied your outcomes. You've got these ideas from here. Your learning intentions are the parts that you will have in your unit plan. Okay. So that's the part that you'd put at the beginning, the learning intention. So obviously for lesson 1, the learning intention is that they're going to understand what their project is for this term and find out what they already know. Okay, the lesson that I'm going to do, like introduction to spreadsheets, the learning intention is that they understand how the software works and how to do basic data analysis in an existing, so I would give them an existing spreadsheet and show them how that works and how they could look at a graph and some of the conclusions that they could draw from a graph and data. Okay. Obviously on our lesson plan, I don't think we have that category. So you've got like all of this, but you don't need to have, you've got your teacher actions, student actions. So you're just saying what you're doing, like what are the students doing? They're going to be working in pairs. Yeah. Are they going to be like designing something? Like what are they doing? What tools do they need? Are they going to be on their laptops? Are they going to be doing a worksheet with pen and paper? These are the sorts of things that you're going to have down here. Is it going to be like laptops open? Is it going to be like you're giving out worksheets and they're going to look at those and like paper-based first? Are you going to do some planning for your research? Like, are they going to be planning out what they're going to research before they go online and research it? Okay, does that make sense? So these parts are all going to be filled in here, but you do have this sample. This sample isn't enough. I would say 2,000 for the lesson plan and 2,000 for the thing isn't enough. But like you said, they're not super concerned about the word count, so you shouldn't be. Work on your quality first, but I'm not expecting it to be like 50 pages. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to create your lesson plan. Your lesson plan is going to be from one of the lessons. So you're going to do your unit of work first. Then you're going to decide on which one of your lessons you're going to go into more depth with, okay? And then you're going to make your lesson plan on that one. And then for your lesson plan, you're going to create a resource that supports that. Yeah? Is that clear?
Hello, Emma.
Yeah. Hi.
I have one question. For the
Yes.
learning focus, I remember when I write the unit plan, it's for whole week, for the 1 week, the learning focus. So we just put that.
Yes. So in here, yeah, in your lesson plan. No, let me find your. Is this the one I've been writing in? No. In your unit plan, you would have the focus for the week. Yeah. Perfect. But each lesson, you would have your learning intentions. So we talked about that. They could be just a bulleted list, like what are your expectations the students are going to have done by the end of the lesson. Okay, so linked in. I'm not going to be distracted. I'm going to answer your question first. So they're going to be linked in. So here you're going to have some, you're going to have like learning intentions each lesson that help you focus on this. So the main focus of this week, probably your first week, is going to go through. So it's really difficult, everybody. I don't want you to get focused on the term elaboration, because there are no elaborations are something that there are in the ACARA syllabus, and that they're an expansion that they provide you with. Okay, so like here, spreadsheets are used to filter and sort food date. That's like what we've picked up from the syllabus. But like my learning intention from this one is that students are going to be able to understand how to sort and filter data on a spreadsheet. Yeah. So maybe I would have and we can use what you can put them in roughly and then word them better. Students understand oh, I'm just going to put it in a spreadsheet. So this could just be you don't need to provide that spreadsheet. Just that. So in your learning intentions, I'm going to have students understand how to filter and sort data in a spreadsheet. And I'm also going to have as my learning intention for this one, predictions about something like that. Yeah. So I've got these 2 learning intentions for this lesson that I've just picked out of this one, because students need to be able to learn how to filter and sort. They need to understand what the terms filter and sort are, like sorting highest to lowest, A to Z, Z to A, what that looks like. You want them to be able to maybe put in a range. So looking at a range of data. So we're quite used to doing things with that. So you start to see patterns. You might have this already set up. So you've already set up like predictive patterns and stuff, but you're getting them to start looking at the data, and they could be like, I can see that we have more that people waste more food on the weekends. Maybe we found some data about food waste in Australia, and we can see that families waste more food on the weekends than on a weekday. And they could start be thinking, oh, like, why is that? Like, what might happen at the weekend? Things like that. Okay. So these could start to be your learning intentions. And then if that was my lesson, you know, I like to just bullet things. There we go. If those were there for my lessons, then I would add it into my lesson plan. Oh, no, that's the sample lesson plan. I would go to my lesson plan, and I'm just going to change it because I'm going to have 2. And I'm just going to have that there. Oh, that's the wrong one. For some reason, I didn't copy it. My learning intentions and my success criteria are going to be in a spreadsheet, and results. Yeah. So that's like at the end of the lesson, if students can do that, that's my success criteria. But these were my learning intentions. So I don't know why that didn't copy. There we go. As I like. I don't know why it's not copied over properly, but anyway. Okay. Does that help? Right. So going back to like, if you have, do you have to provide a sample spreadsheet? No, you can just say you're going to provide a sample spreadsheet like I've done, because that's not the resource I'm going to create. Yeah, you need to have your learning intentions for each lesson in your unit plan. Yes. So in your unit plan, here, I would probably have those at the start. Yeah, so I know I haven't done it in this one, but my learning intention here would be, oh, not that one. I'm just trying to go. And in fact, as you know, like you've just pointed out, understand the concept of food waste and I mean, that's not the best one. I'd probably tweak that a bit before I go into it. Yeah. So I would have a learning intention at the start of every lesson in your unit plan. You don't need to have a huge one. You can just have an overarching one. It just helps you set your lessons up. Okay. It just helps you set it up and start to plan things out. So I would have a learning intention in every lesson. Yeah. Some lessons you might not have your differentiation in, but for most of them, you're going to have a little bit of your differentiation in here. Then in your lesson plan, you would have more focused differentiation because you're going into this lesson more, you know, like you've got more deeply. The key that I would have to your lesson plan is that you're going to go like 5-minute start of your lesson routine, 5-minute end of your lesson routine. Yeah. So like this one. Okay. So I would just have like, because you're probably not going to pick lesson 1. So you're going to have like your 5-minute rather than a 10-minute, because this was a longer task. But every lesson I would have an entry routine and an exit routine. Okay. And just have those few things in there. Okay. So just like tweak this to yours. So 5 minutes at the start, 5 minutes at the end, every lesson. That's something that you'll do as you're doing. Then you're going to have, look, they've got an exit ticket there. So that's what's going to do. Like you've given them an empty grid of paper and they're actually going to hand that to you before they leave the class. Yeah, that's their task. And that's a 15-minute one, like winding up the lesson. And then you've got your bulk of your lessons. Okay, so this is when they're really going to get to do their activities themselves. Yes, in the diversity section of the lesson plan, the template says copy from the unit plan. Does this mean it should? No, it should be a direct copy. So, but you will have a bit more detail in here. Yeah. So if in this lesson plan, I know it's bugger when I've got so many things open. If in your lesson plan, you've said like, you know, like this is what you're doing, then here you're going to copy that. You're going to put it into your lesson plan here, but you will have a slight more detail. Okay. So just copy it in and then you could have a bullet point under the section, like what that looks like in this class. Okay. But you would have, or it's going to be where it goes in the lesson, because you're probably not going to really need any diversity in the beginning, unless you're saying you've got a student who has, like, maybe you've got a student who has issues with their focus and ADHD, and they might actually have an individual entry and exit plan that you've said, and you can just write that on there. You know, each student has their own plan that they know what to do, so they're focused on that. Okay, if you're doing a task where they're going to write something, you might let the whole class do it on a laptop because you know that's going to be easier for a couple of people, or you might pair them up. Yes. So when we did this before, you identified in your unit plan the students that had needs. So you could have student 1, EALD, student 2, ADHD on NCCT. But you might have one where you're like, oh, a high number of students in this class have low literacy, or there's a large number of students in the class who are EALD and don't have excellent English. You know, you could put 10% of the class. Okay. Yeah. So if you would like to do that, you could do that. I would suggest that you do that at the start of your unit plan. And that what you do is you just add, in fact, what I would do, because it isn't here, I would go like this, just because that box is there and who doesn't love to copy things? I mean, I do. And I would just go like this. Oh, actually, I just have to go Z. I like a space between. I'm just going to go down one. There we go. And I'm going to and in here, I would just put, let's get rid of the I. I've got yeah, something like that. Students who have lower average and I'm going to get rid of the columns because I think we can just merge those. There we go. Yeah. So if you would like to do that, and then you could just use EALD, NCCD, and then you've got literacy and numeracy throughout. It is compulsory that you have identified them in the task. It isn't compulsory that you add it like I just did in that brief. So let's just go back to the description again. Okay, so remembering, I'm just using this because we're going to look, oh, I've got it open here, haven't I? Oh, let's go into here, the rubric. Okay, because this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, perfect. So first off, we're going to just look again at the rubric, and you're demonstrating that you've got these and you've got your strategies, right? 5%, sorry, caters for learner diversity. Yeah. So 5% of this, which doesn't seem a lot, but you know, you're going to show, oh, look, one or more of the following. I think that's another one for ELD. They've used a different term there that they haven't used. Students with special needs and some strategies for supporting them. Okay, so just 1 second. So for those people who said we don't have to do it, it's not compulsory. Let's just go back to this example we've done here. Now, if you've done this at the beginning, you've already started to meet that criteria. If then, as you go through, you've identified those parts here and added the data, then you have shown, yeah, that you have included one or more of the following, right? So you've already included, like just there, we've included 3. We've acknowledged that we've got an understanding of their need. Okay. Now, obviously we're here and the strategies are limited, but are not clearly embedded. So actually, you've mentioned them, yeah, but you haven't embedded them. So we're already a credit on that one. If you've actually started to really think about how you're supporting them, that will show you how that works through. Okay. Right. Next question is, if we're planning the first 4 weeks of the unit, does that mean that we don't need to consider a full closed loop for the whole unit? Is it okay to plan just the section without the full sequence? Yes. This is what I talked about in the beginning when we were looking at note in here. If you remember, when I was looking at what you would include, so I talked about how you might only look at these like few bits. Okay, you might only look at investigating and defining, and maybe you'd get to a bit of designing. Okay, somebody else asked if they could do a mini project, and I was like, yeah, so you could do the whole loop in 4 weeks, but you're going to make it clear in the description that this is a mini project. And this is a chart, like maybe it's for year 7 to do their first little mini project. So you want everybody to be able to succeed. You want them all to have experience of a project. So you're going to do a mini project and you've just picked out a section. So you might have only done, like if you were doing digital implementation, maybe you're just going to break down the user experience, like the user design experience. Yeah, right. So that's that question. I hope I've answered that question about your full sequence. The next question, and we're going to have to be finishing soon, so we'll get on to that, is it fine that you go with 3 topics? Now, if you missed the start of the lesson, thank you for putting them all in. Yes, because you would choose, for instance, privacy and security. So you would pick like maybe this one, but you would also pick everybody. You're going to pick a topic area. So digital technologies, data representation, acquiring and managing and analyzing, privacy and security, digital implementation. You're going to choose one of those, yeah? Just one of those areas. And then you're going to choose some design thinking skills. Everybody will have design thinking skills. Like you might only have this first bit, yeah, but because we've chosen the first 4 weeks, you will definitely have an introduction to project management and investigating and defining, because those are the first stages. Okay, well, all right, what to write in the elaboration if there is no others. So we just looked at this in here, yeah? So in the curriculum, I went in and I went year 8 content descriptors, digital systems, yeah? If I've chosen methods of data transmission, these are really the elaborations, okay? Yeah, just use these. So each of them has an example, and that's what we're using for the, yeah, sorry, like, and that's what we're going to use as these elaborations, yeah? So if you were doing digital systems and this one lesson, you might just do this. One lesson, you might do both of them. That's up to you, but these are the sections that I would use for elaborations, okay? Now, somebody asked me that question today and I was like, no, but now I'm like, yes, use these as elaborations. I'm going to share this with Ferris again. Yes, so everybody is choosing. Let me just go back and minimize these a minute. Everybody is choosing one. If this is digital technologies, you're choosing one of these areas, yeah? But everybody is going to be using design thinking skills. So you might be doing privacy and security, design thinking skills to support that learning. Data representation, design thinking skills, okay? Perfect. Right, everybody, we're going to wind it up there. I hope you've had an excellent time and I hope you've had some questions answered today. Feel free to please email me any more questions that you have. This is where you want to be spending all your time in the curriculum websites, yeah? I've added a few extra resources and things into task 2. So these are just really some unit help. So there's the Digital Technologies Hub, which is somewhere else, but it was about spreadsheets. BBC Bite Size, one of the best resources for younger kids too. Have a look around. I'm going to email you all tomorrow as well, because obviously I want you to finish the unit review and give a glowing reference. Okay, have a fantastic week. I look forward to reading your assessments next week. Email me any questions you have in the week. And if I get a lot of the same ones, I'll directly message you all with the answers to those questions. Okay. Thank you. Have a fantastic night. Bye, everyone.